Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good or be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. You deserve to feel good. We all deserve to feel good. And here is a little video about what we do in the cannabis space as nurses, and then we're going to get started on our very, very exciting show today.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
Oh, there you go. There you have it. Growing in health, growing in cannabis. Hey, everyone. My name is Sherry Mack, and I'm here with my partner, Elizabeth Mack. I'm the Chief Nursing Officer and co-founder of Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse and Vice President of Nursing at Bloom Hemp CBD. I'm a cannabis nurse, patient, advocate, activist, and a very passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare. And I'm really excited to announce that this is my 7th year podcasting The Green Nurse Living Your Best Life. I started podcasting in 2018 when the National Council State Boards of Nursing came out with their guidelines that all nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge when it comes to cannabis as medicine. I started podcasting to share compelling stories of healing and to decrease stigma, since I too use cannabis as medicine. Cannabis nursing has been recognized as a specialty, and nurses are truly making an impact on advocating for the safe therapeutic use of cannabis by teaching on the endocannabinoid system and how to optimize cannabis as medicine for health, healing, and wellness purposes. But before we get started on our very exciting show with our very special guest, we have a message from our sponsors at Bloom Hemp. Elizabeth, you want to take it away and let us know about Bloom.
Okay, so Bloom Hemp is a woman and nurse-owned hemp CBD emporium with USDA organic CBD grown in the mountains of Colorado, tested for purity, potency, cannabinoid, and terpene profiles, and they lead with quality, safety, value, and patient-centered care. Bloom Hemp is proud to offer a free nurse line. If you call 970-404-HOPE, you can reach our nurses or pharmacists. You can also get free email care plans, and there is an evergreen coupon code of Green Nurse for 10% off.
There we go.
And free shipping.
And free shipping. Well, there we go. Thank you, Bloom Hemp, for sponsoring this show. We are forever grateful for you. So, Really, really excited. Nurse Laura Barrett was our honorary nurse writer for our December newsletter and blog this December on safe consumption and how to choose high quality, safe CBD products. And we are really grateful for that. If you check in the show notes, you can click on the blog and see the blog that she wrote. And today you all get to meet her in person. So very, very excited to have her here. Laura Barrett, known as Nurse Laura, is the founder and executive director of the National Clinical Director Consortium and runs Ask Nurse Laura. And she's going to tell us all about that. She serves on several nonprofit boards and is passionate about educating on cannabis and psychedelic medicine. She is also faculty at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, and she developed a psychedelic elective for the Masters of Cannabis and Science and Therapeutics program on ketamine. Nurse Laura has extensive experience in the cannabis industry, emphasizing the importance of understanding laws, scientific research, and patient data. She is dedicated to advancing cannabis therapeutics, creating personalized care plans, and promoting public health. Nurse Laura is devoted to advancing the evolving field of cannabinoid therapeutics, and we're delighted to have her part of our team at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse. Welcome, Nurse Laura.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to say, I've seen that intro video before, but I'm so grateful for it. It's so beautiful. It just inspires my heart, makes me feel happy just watching it. It's so true. And it's just beautiful to watch the two of you in that little video.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for helping me change the paradigm of healthcare.
Yes.
Which is what we're here to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you've been on the podcast before over the years, but this is the first time you've been on the podcast with Elizabeth and I together.
Yeah.
And for the people that are watching for the first time, what brought you to cannabis nursing and the development of Ask Nurse Laura?
Tell us your story.
Yeah.
It's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. And it definitely is a little bit of a different journey because I was one of those few people, I think, that had never smoked weed in college or in high school. And I really did grow up with the stigma and have a stigma against weed, marijuana. It really, in my brain, it was as bad as heroin until I was like being pulled into the cannabis industry. So much of a stigma. I didn't even know, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I share it because I think there are people out there that aren't in the know, that don't even know that cannabis is another name for marijuana and that it means weed and that it's all these same things. I think some people are just embarrassed to admit that they don't know, but I didn't know. And I was invited to be a part of a grow license in Maryland when Maryland was just getting ready to offer applications for a program. And I turned it down because, again, I worked at Hopkins. I was very on the straight and narrow, and I did not know that there was much medicinal value, except for I knew that, we let cancer patients smoke joints. That's about all I had, cancer and HIV patients. And that was 10 years ago. And my world is so much different now. Every opportunity I have, I'm standing from the rooftops and screaming about how cannabis is such important medicine and we need to have access and we need to have standards and some regulation so that we have safe medicine accessible to people who really need it for significant medical conditions. And then also for people who have it, are using it somewhat socially, somewhat medically. And then for the people who would prefer to use cannabis instead of other things like alcohol that might be more harmful for them than other things. So, so about 10 years ago, I entered into this opportunity to be on a license. I opened a grow facility here in Maryland, starting with an empty 50,000 square foot warehouse, building out that warehouse. I worked every single job in the grow facility to help write the standard operating procedures and then train the staff and hire the staff, train the staff. Got really involved in the legislation and all of the different meetings and committees and tracking seed to sale. And it was really helpful. It really didn't have much to do with being a nurse for me at the time. It really was about every other role and understanding and working with the people who knew GMP warehouse practices and really using my nursing background for compliance and following the rules and working with others and helping us to come up with frameworks. And then really having to do the jobs, kind of like that show, like Dirty Jobs, when the boss comes in and do the job. Like I had to do the jobs so that I could understand enough to help facilitate the future. And then we had also a partnership with processing and dispensaries. So I, in the processing, to be very fair, I did mostly observing. I didn't actually do processing, but I did parts of it. You know, like I made gummies, I helped to make shatter. Like I learned about all of these things, which again, at the time I was doing some of this, I didn't even know how people consumed some of these concentrated products. I just knew we needed to make them. So, and then we opened our first dispensary and then opened multiple dispensaries. And then I helped to implement wholesale sales and dispensary sales, dispensary delivery. I mean, I really have worked marketing, packaging, almost every job there is to work. I have had an experience in, even if it's kind of like a shadowing experience. And that was all really incredible. I don't think anyone could pay for that type of experience.
Yeah.
And in a kind of tricky business deal, that company chose to let me go after like 4 years. And I walked away with not a percentage of the company, which I thought I would have. But I walked away with myself as whole and a knowledge base that was incredible and a passion for cannabis that I knew I wanted to move forward. And I really believe it was meant to be, because within 2 weeks of being laid off, I opened my own business. At first it was called something different. But what happened was every time anybody would talk to me, they would be like, I don't know, ask Nurse Laura. And I was like, that's not the thing. Ask Nurse Laura. So I very quickly changed the name of my business to Ask Nurse Laura. And it's kind of weird to think that I'm branded, but I kind of am branded as Nurse Laura. And this kind of works.
Yeah.
And yeah, so in Maryland, we're really lucky. Maryland is one of the only states that has the role we have with dispensaries. That's a role of clinical director.
Yes.
Some states do require a pharmacy tech or a pharmacist or a doctor. Some states require some type of affiliation with medical dispensaries, but Maryland is very particular and more broad in this role of clinical director. And so once I was no longer attached to this company and I had my own business, I was able to start writing contracts to do patient coaching and consultations with the dispensaries paying for my time, which is really how I kind of got started. And it's been such a blessing. But now it's grown to all kinds of other opportunities too, while I still do that patient coaching. And I'm so grateful for that piece. It's kind of like when you leave bedside nursing and you still want to stay connected and you work like that 1 day a week on a unit anyhow, just to stay connected. I'm really grateful. I wouldn't give up the patient part.
Yeah.
So, well, for sure. Yeah. And you know, it's a similar journey to most of us cannabis nurses that have been in this industry for a while, right? You work your way up and around, and it's very circuitous path. It's just not like a linear career, path the way that it is in traditional healthcare. So, you know, I want to hear more about the National Clinical Director Consortium. Tell us about your position, how it got started, and what it does now, and what your dreams are for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So when this role of this job title of clinical director was initially launched in Maryland in the legislation that became regulation, it was shall have, might have, but not required to have. And then at some point along the way, it became required, gratefully. And many dispensaries don't really value it very much. They have that role to check the box, but they don't really utilize it very much. Although I believe that they have someone available if you really dig deep enough, but it's not easily accessible. And then some dispensaries have it where they advertise. One of my favorite dispensaries that I work with, they actually advertise it on their website. I mean, everybody knows, like, they're like, wait, I've seen you somewhere before. And they're like, oh, it's on the dispensary's website. And they really make sure that it's accessible and that people can get the value, that they can spend the time. It's not like, oh, one and done. It's like, no, if they need 3 visits, they can have 3 visits. And so as I was kind of finding my way through that, not having, it was the first time in my life that I didn't have like a full-time job when I became an entrepreneur. And I noticed that I missed having the team. And I thought, wow, there are other people out there trying to do this too. And I knew some of them. And how are they doing it? And so I started talking to the people that I knew that were like on the list with the state filling this role of clinical director, and a couple of other nurses particularly. And I was like, I feel like we need a group. We need our own group. Like, we need a group to advocate for ourselves. So my initial thought, and when we started, our initial thought as we were kind of setting up our vision and our mission was, just like a Maryland thing, because Maryland had clinical director. But so quickly it became clear that there were people all across the country that were trying to do this, that needed support. And even though we do have wonderful organizations like the American Cannabis Nurses Association, Cannabis Nurses Network, Cannabis Nurses of Color, we have organizations that are beneficial. But this organization is about bringing together nurses, doctors, and pharmacists who are all working in this type of role, advising patients who are shopping at a dispensary. And that piece, to me, that integrated piece, was really important. So we have members from pharmacy and members that are doctors, not certifying providers, because if you're choosing that path, you can't also fill this role of clinical director. And our goal is twofold. It's internally, it's to support each other, to do, patient review, talk about patients in a HIPAA compliant way, so that we can see, well, what have you tried and has this worked, and be a resource to each other, and potentially to do some research, and then also to support the role enough to hopefully help encourage other states to take on this role and have it accessible to patients. I mean, we're so grateful. I'm so grateful that you guys have an affiliation and have a nurse call line. Most people don't have access to something like that, or they don't know that it exists. So now they all know, hi, everybody, don't forget there's a nurse call line. But for many people, they're just wandering around, aimless, trying every different product to see what fits. And it's just so sad. First of all, because I think it really does put sometimes people who are already in despair in a further despair, because if, I'll use someone like in an assisted living or something, right? They're sitting around playing cards, and, Joe is saying, yeah, my gummy, I sleep all night. And someone else says, oh, my gummy, yeah, I sleep. And this one, and then you have this one person that has tried a gummy or tried something and it didn't work for them. And they're like, it must be me. Like, it didn't work for me. Like, something's wrong with me. And it's just so interesting, because like the two of you, when you do have, first of all, that holistic training, that nurse background, where you're looking at the whole person, not just which gummy should they take, but what has happened in their life, what medical conditions, what surgeries, like what might be impacting the absorption of this medicine in their belly, and which route of administration might be better for them. Like, I don't expect even very well-educated dispensary staff in any state to have that kind of background. That's not their job. Their job is to know the products and be able to describe them and give a little bit more of a generic recommendation if the patient asks. So many people hear, oh, you need something for sleep. Oh, indica. Yeah, like they get that kind of much, or a product that's labeled for sleep.
Right.
But having the medical background, and really, again, I'm a fan of the doctors. I'm a fan of the pharmacists. And I still think that as nurses, we just have that whole person background in such a different way. So many people that I work with, they're like, gosh, I don't feel like anybody's ever asked me all those questions in one sitting. Integrative medicine practices, I think, they do it. Functional medicine practices, they do it. But like you said in the video, Elizabeth, we really want to bring, and I know our friend, the Canna Queens book person, Melanie, we want to bring healthcare back to healthcare, right? We want to have time to look at and talk about the whole person and bring it all together. And it's interesting because when I was at Hopkins, I implemented the electronic health record Epic. And there was a short time where I was trying to encourage my team about the good we were doing for patients and for healthcare, but I wasn't really even feeling it myself because I felt so detached from the patient.
Yeah.
And then I realized that by bringing the medical record all together and giving a doctor access to everything that the other doctors were doing and a complete list of medications and a complete list of surgeries for multiple facilities and ambulatory and inpatient to be able to see instantly was really going to make a difference in healthcare. And I still believe that, except for partially because of timeframes and insurance. I don't think they have time to look at it. So it's there, and the algorithm and the automatic checking is there for safety, but they don't have time like I get to do as an entrepreneur to take the time to listen to the whole story. And sometimes I think the benefit to the patient is just that I sat and listened. Sometimes I wonder if anything I'm going to say really matters because it's about the listening. So I had a patient yesterday that, in the end, telling me everything that she's tried, just using the dispensary staff, and then sort of out of desperation calling me. And she was in a position where she was going to have to pay for my time because there wasn't somebody that was covering it for her. And she was like, I'm not sure if it's worth it, but nothing is working. Like she was just at her wit's end. And I realized that she had a gastric bypass and she's trying to eat gummy cannabis with like no time for it to sit in her belly because she has chronic diarrhea and everything just comes right out. It was so clear to me that a gummy is probably not the best route of administration. But how would she know that? How would the dispensary staff know that? It's nobody's fault. But I think it was such a relief to her to learn about the option to consider a tincture.
Yeah. And and that's what I love, the creativity of nurses. And so like when someone comes to us and says it's not working anymore, we have to look at, well, what's not working? Because we know that cannabis works, right? We know what are you doing or not doing to support the use of cannabis products, right? Because it's more than just that. But the other thing that we did develop over time was a product evaluation form. So we actually have this at holisticcaring.com under forms. And when people say that things don't work for me, I literally send them that form, and it's a list of questions that goes in, and based on how they answer that, I can pretty much determine why it's not working. And then redirect them to either trying something else or maybe not even having anything to do with cannabis, changing your diet, changing patterns because it's not just about the cannabis, right? We teach everything that you do or don't do in your life is going to affect how cannabis works in your body. Are you going to sneeze?
You're supporting your endocannabinoid system, right? Yeah. That it doesn't just mean cannabis.
Right.
Yeah. And, when people think about cannabis, they think about smoking a joint and they think about gummies, and
or brownies.
Or a piece of chocolate or something. But yeah, generally edibles or a joint. And when we open their eyes, they're looking at, tinctures, topicals, vape inhalation, which would also be good for somebody who's, got rapid gastric emptying, thinking about all the people on the GLP-1s now where they have gastric slowing, right? So a gummy for them could take a long time to metabolize, and it's going to change things up. And even just having that conversation with them, doctors can do it, but they don't necessarily understand the cannabis routes of administration like they do with their own pharmacology. And that is why nurses need to be this role in the bridge. It's something that we are cut out for naturally as educators and healers and people who care and nurture somebody, right?
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yes, I just have to say now, I'm going to plug myself for a second. So I'm writing a book. I know I've talked to you guys about it before, but I'm actively maybe halfway finished, maybe halfway, but very much writing. And it's about nurses are the bridge. Like that's the whole thing. Because when I look at all of the work that I've done in the past 10 years, it's all of these different stories, not just direct to patient, but to legislator, to administrator, to executive, to HR relations, to another nurse. And it's all of these stories that are me just kind of bringing the bridge for the information, opening up the lanes of ability to drive across the bridge, right? Opening up the lanes of communication to allow one party to talk to the other and to have some kind of back and forth to open up that communication. And I really want to empower other nurses, particularly nurses, to do that. So yes. And my patient yesterday was a little complicated. I can't share too much more because I don't want to make it so obvious that she'll know it's her, but she had so many things. Like there were very few routes of administration that were going to fit for her. But again, not many people, I mean, yes, our peers, people that are in this would know, but a lot of people just wouldn't know. And so I'm really excited to hear if she tries the things that we talked about and if they work. But, I had another patient yesterday and in the end for him, I was like, yeah, I think you need a shamanic drum circle. I'm not sure if it's even cannabis, I think that would be best for you.
Yeah. Wow. You're just all over the place, right? Like, I mean, I could just see the way that you work and talking about being the bridge, I know you also got into advocacy and legislative process and a little bit about that as well. So tell us about, like the Connor Sheffield Foundation and Ryan's Law East. We have Ryan's Law here in California, because it was SB 311, where the governor said that, through a legislative process and much lobbying, that it's okay for people to be able to use cannabis products, non-smokable, in a healthcare institution if they're at end of life, so like a year or less to live. And this really came about with Ryan Bartell, who was dying of cancer and wanted to be able to use his oils. And so, tell us about what's going on in Maryland with Connor and some of the other work, and do they have the ability to use cannabis in hospitals and hospice facilities yet?
I wish I could say the answer is yes, it's accessible everywhere, similar to California. So I have been a part of the Ryan's Law team and collaborated with some other states a little bit too through the group at Cannabis Nurses Network and Ryan's Law. And really when we were looking to do this in Maryland, that's where we started, because the Ryan's Law advocacy group already had a bill, already had wording, voluntarily shares this information in a very generous way. And they did get that legislation passed. Getting the legislation passed is just the first step. Then you have to get that legislation to become regulated and available in hospitals, the health system, with policy. And as far as I know to date, that isn't like a California-wide thing yet. Like that policy hasn't happened yet, because it's one thing to say it's legal to do this, but it's another thing to sort of regulate and enforce it, which is challenging. So when the Connor Sheffield Foundation is a nonprofit foundation that was built because of the kid who's now an adult, Connor Sheffield, who has, as a child, had this stomach motility disorder that has baffled doctors at every major health system for years now. And they don't know what to do. They're like, does he need an entire gut transplant? Like it's really sad. But what they learned pretty early on was that high doses of CBD oil, and then it became some other cannabinoids too, but at first it was mostly high doses of CBD oil, were the only thing that helped him move his bowels at all and be out of pain. And he was failing to thrive because he couldn't eat, because he couldn't, you know. So, so it started with a bill to allow cannabis to be delivered on school campuses, because he was young and he was in school, and his parents would have to pick him up, take him off campus, administer the cannabis CBD, and bring him back. And he was missing a lot of school. And so I came in sort of at the late end of that. Another nurse, primarily Ashley Wynn Grimes, was a little helpful with them in getting that going. And they got that bill passed and made lots of relationships in our state capital. And so what we realized, and now I was involved then, is that Connor, if he went into the hospital, what was he going to do? Like, if he was to have any surgery, what was going to happen? He wasn't going to have access to his cannabis. And so we looked at the school bill that already passed, which we knew Maryland was comfortable with, and then the Ryan's Law bill, and tried to combine them, except for there were some tweaks and issues, because Maryland doesn't have a definition of terminal. And that's a whole nother bill and a whole nother problem to try to pass. So our legislators weren't comfortable with us using the same wording in the bill. And since Connor Sheffield himself at the time, and still at this time, thank you God, is not terminal, it wasn't going to benefit him. And it was, a foundation kind of started because of him. So we wanted to try to do something a little bit bigger, not knowing whether it would pass or not. We got bipartisan support. We got all kinds of co-signatures. It was going very well. It's 2 years ago now in legislation, but it also was the same year that Maryland was trying to pass the cannabis reform bill to allow adult use. And that just took so much time and so much priority that we never got to the table. Like, we just never got on the list to get to a vote. So we didn't get voted down, but we didn't get voted in either for legislation. However, our only opponent was the Maryland Hospital Association, and they were willing to meet with us outside of session. And at first we all met with them, but then I kind of they trusted the nurse. So they were willing to meet with me one-on-one and over again. And we came up with a policy that they felt comfortable with. And a year ago, November, the stakeholders of the entire Maryland Hospital Association approved this policy. So it's an actual policy that any hospital in Maryland, if you're listening, Maryland Hospital Systems, any hospital in Maryland can pull it up, or I have a copy of it if you want it, and can implement it at any time. And there has not been a huge rollout. It's not something that's like hospitals are advertising that they're doing, but I do have some inside information that it is being utilized, and I share it with every nurse at every hospital and everyone I can at every patient. I'm like, if you want to bring this with you, there are ways to do it. And it's very similar. It's patient brings their own medication. It's not smokable. They have to be a medical patient. It has to be labeled. There are rules because we need to keep everyone safe. Yep. And then I've been trying to do education to any health system, again, particularly in Maryland, that will let me, on the ethics of nursing and stigma and judgment, and what happens when your patient says, no, I'm gonna take my cannabis.
Right.
What do you do? How do you document it? How do you handle it? And what is your role to not, the idea is to do good and to help your patient, but at least don't hurt your patient. And for some people, if you're going to administer the opioids, you're hurting them.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, I love that phrase. What happens when? That is like the best segment to ever have. What happens when? Because, we don't talk about it like that, but that's just like common sense. What happens when? Because, we dance an issue like it's going to be, a nuclear, issue, right, with cannabis. And it's like, no, they're going to smuggle it in. They're going to not tell you. Well, wouldn't you rather have it above board?
Yeah.
Right. Even if you can't store it, even if you can't touch it, I am, again, every opportunity I have for every bit of staff that I have access to, I'm like, well, you need to do something. We need to find a way to document it. It needs to be in the record because we need to know, because you might need to give some medications at different timing. I can't tell you how many people are taking steroids and cannabis at the same time, and so many things that I'm just like,
Yeah.
if you're and if you're going to take some of these drugs and hope that they work, the prescription drugs, I'm like, well, let's give them the chance to work. Let's not have cannabis get to the receptor first, and then you're just taking this other medication to put stress on your liver or your kidneys. It just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, that's a big thing. So the Connor Sheffield Foundation, we have a big research project. I'm just gonna, while we're on them,
Yes.
for a second, I'm guessing you're going to put a link in the show notes, but
There is. And yes, the link in the show notes is already there for it. And also, I'm participating. I was selected.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Awesome.
I've been answering some of the questions that have come through.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So it's a very simple, very baby research study. When the foundation was formed, one of our goals was to raise money to do cannabis research. And so we really tried hard to do like a big project with Hopkins. They were on board. I have friends there, but it costs a lot of money. So we decided to work with Otha Smith from Tetragram, use that app to capture data, come up with some survey questions, and do some observational research for post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. You don't even have to be officially diagnosed. You just have to believe that you have symptoms of that disorder and be willing to purchase your cannabis in a legal market. It has to be trackable, like seed to sale trackable. And then document what you're using in the app, which if you haven't heard of the app, you probably should put a link to Tetragram too, because I know you guys know it's so helpful. And and we're gathering the data. It's 3 surveys, 30, 90, and 6 months. And, we're just trying to get a good feel for what are people using on their own. What are they coming up with? The hardest part for me is to stand aside and not want to coach and talk to the participants. Everyone, they're like, nope, you have to stand back until we do our data. Then you can come in and help.
Yeah.
That's really challenging, to think that, maybe they should try this. Nope, not right now.
Yeah. Well, I think, and the reason why too, that you have that inkling is because, as a nurse, that our cannabinoid requirements change over time as we change. So if someone's using the same thing over and over and over again, and all of a sudden it stops working, well, it may be that they need a different formulation or a different method of administration or a different chemotype or different nutraceuticals or whatever, right? So this will be really, really interesting to see get these results out. And I think that's just absolutely fascinating that you're participating in that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really excited there. And then at University of Miami,
That was my next question. That was the exact
Tell us about the task force.
Yes. University of Miami Task Force in Nursing for Cannabis.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I still can't, I don't think that has actually sunk in yet. And hopefully we're going to recruit more nurses, maybe one of you, to be on the task force as well. We're still in the recruitment phase. However, the University of Miami incredibly proposed to me and asked me to be the chair of this task force. That is just, it's an incredible opportunity. So the idea is really the same kind of goal that you two shared, that you have, that I have, that many of the people that do the work we do have, is to bring cannabis into traditional healthcare, traditional research, traditional universities, and to provide education, particularly to healthcare providers and nurses, and then also as a subset to patients. It's a really big ask. It's a really big thing to want to do. So one of our challenges is going to be to try to, narrow down what's like realistic to do first and have, a multi-phased implementation. But yeah, we have some great organizations represented already that I wasn't a part of selecting, but I'm happy that they're there. And I really look forward to who else gets to join us, so that we're like big enough to be diverse, in all different ways, yet small enough to be able to make progress. Because that's one of the things about our National Clinical Director Consortium. It sometimes looks like it has more members, but a lot of times for our meetings, they're mostly on Zoom because people aren't all in Maryland. It's a smaller group that tends to participate. And I really find that beneficial because you can really have discussion and get real feedback. And then people, the larger masses, can watch the video, like maybe with this, right? So some people watch it live, but the people that can watch it later when it's the best time that suits them and they can really absorb the information, it's just so important that we get the information and share.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like listening to a good podcast. I'll do that while I take a walk, while I drive, cook dinner, So yeah, wherever you want to download all that good information. But, everything that we do also has a big public health lens, right?
Yeah.
Which really leads us into the secret shopping. And, really, whether it's, Hopkins or clinical director or Miami, and nursing school and training healthcare professionals, it's about public health. Because if people are running around using cannabis as a medicine and taking, say, steroids, which you can break down what they need to do safely, it's something that we need to work together with to make sure that the medicines are vetted, that they're safe, that they're tested, that people know how to take them, and not just, well, I'm just going to gobble down these because they taste real good, and before you know it, you're in trouble with either CBD or THC
or alcohol and.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So tell us about, let's talk about that secret shopping experience in Delaware and what happened and how you were involved in the results. Yeah. I'm going to pull up the little PDF here.
Okay. Yeah. So again, another just really cool opportunity that started with the Connor Sheffield Foundation and us talking about the work we were doing and trying to help the state of Delaware just move forward because they have a medical market and they were voting on and moving towards an adult use market and could potentially going to disintegrate the medical market. And so we were trying to provide some really important reasons why adult use and legalization, and this is sort of an aside from this document, but why that is not just the end all be all answer. Because when you look at, and you guys in California know so much right now with the whole hemp issue and access to, some of these full spectrum cannabinoids for people and what your state is doing or trying to do or did in states that want to just have adult use, you have to be 21 and up and you're able to shop anywhere. Sounds great in theory, but it doesn't help that medical patient who's 19, 20, or the 12-year-old who, the parent is treating with some low dose THC and CBG for autism. Like, it doesn't include those people. It wouldn't have included Connor Sheffield then. So it's really important. And so we were at first meeting with some legislators in Delaware to sort of talk through this and help them understand from the patient perspective and the clinical perspective. And then they followed up with me and they were like, what do you know about hemp? And I was like, oh, that's a whole nother ball of wax. At least when you live in a state that has a legal cannabis market, it's regulated, it has required third-party testing, which not every state has that either. Lucky to live in Maryland and have required state certified laboratories to test the cannabis. But in the hemp market, I have found the craziest things where people are like, no, I really think it's a good product. It has that COA thing and it has a number on it. It has a barcode. And so I'll dig into it. Not as much now, but in the past, I would for each item, I would specifically dig into what my patient said they had been taking and look it up and try to call the lab. And half the time the number didn't even exist, there was no such lab, or the address was the same as the address of the person that supplied the hemp. Just so many complications and made up things, because even though we have the Farm Bill, we have no regulation of the hemp market. And I'm a huge fan of the hemp market. You guys know this, but just so your viewers know, I'm a huge fan of hemp. Like most of what I use are the Bloom hemp products, right? I'm a huge fan of hemp. Really all along, even before I knew about Bloom, I was using hemp CBD because it's harder to find high CBD products in the dispensaries because high THC is generally what sells. And so I think it's really important to have a strong hemp market, but we need regulated, I think, quantified, qualified, safely tested, reliable, repeatable products. And that just isn't really easily available in many states. And so the Delaware people were like, we were thinking maybe a secret shopper campaign. And so what they did, I didn't actually do this shopping, but they sent a couple people out to, I think, 12 different locations of hemp shops, gas stations, anywhere that was advertising that they sold products. And they purchased 30 different types of items, from flour to vape pens to gummies, tinctures, like just all different types of products. And then we had like a little team, which included Jehan Marku. So like, research scientist, person who really knows what he's doing, evaluating those types of like data and numbers on lab results, used a third-party lab to do all of the testing. And the results were really scary, so much worse than I thought they would be. Really a concern for public health. And for that reason, so many news stations and like reporters, and I think like even MJ Biz like did an article because this was a big deal. And so it wasn't even just that, oh yeah, there, wasn't CBD like it said there's CBD. It was, oh, it's like just THC. It's THCA or it's THC, and it's significantly higher amounts than it says anywhere, if it's even labeled at all. So, and then, a lot of the synthetic cannabinoids like Delta 8 and other THCO, things like that, things that we really don't know any safety profile for. I personally have experienced with multiple patients who have had really negative impacts from some of the synthetic cannabinoids, and they didn't know. And then also some of those synthetic cannabinoids, like Delta 8, I think it's pretty, most people know it, you take higher doses of Delta 8, but then someone switches from Delta 8 to Delta 9 and they don't know any better. And they went from taking 40 or 80 milligrams of Delta 8, and then they try to take that much of Delta 9, and that's a big problem. Plus all kinds of like mold and like aspergillus, just all things that a particularly an impaired person, like an autoimmune deficient person could really get sick from if they had these products. And then there was like psilocybin in some of the products, which again, I'm a fan of psilocybin. That's another thing I do, right? I mean, I work in some psychedelics, and in Maryland, we have a task force now for the responsible use of psychedelic medicine. But it didn't even say on the label that it was going to have, like, you didn't know you were getting magic mushrooms. You thought you were buying, a CBD gummy, and now you have magic mushrooms too. So, really concerning, really just demonstrates the need for some type of regulation, some type of follow through, and legal markets. Like that definitely, again, the primary purpose was to educate the public, but also to encourage Delaware, if you can hear this, Delaware, to get your legal market open.
That's what I was just going to ask. So from this Delaware secret shopping experience and the results and all the press that happened around it, what is Delaware doing?
It's still in progress.
Still in progress.
Okay, so to be clear, they were purchasing CBD products, what they thought were hemp CBD. They weren't in legal dispensaries, 83% of them had more than the 0.3% allowed as hemp CBD.
Yeah, they weren't even Farm Bill compliant. Yes. But, and so I haven't done a secret shopper campaign in Florida, but being from Florida and spending a lot of time back in Florida and now working with University of Miami in Florida, I'm very much on the inside of what's going on in Florida too. And Florida is full of legacy market cannabis everywhere. Like, because the medical program in Florida is so limited, even people that can easily have a medical card, they trust their legacy person. And honestly, in some cases, their legacy person has better cannabis. It's just, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Probably you guys, I forgot, you're in California. Of course you know.
Listeners may not know what legacy means. So what does legacy mean?
Not a part of the legal market. The corner person, the
it's a nice way of saying black market.
Yes.
Or caregiver, the people
model
that were growing plants and selling them, giving them away, that sort of thing.
Yes, which isn't legal in Florida either.
No, but when you don't have an adult use market and a place for people to go shop for THC, you are going to have people gaming the system, which is, even in California with legal THC everywhere on just about every corner, they're still gaming the system and having, the hemp THC in gas stations, liquor stores, convenience shops, etc., which is why, we were alluding to this earlier. Governor Newsom had an emergency executive order banning hemp CBD because of the proliferation of hemp THC everywhere. So they're doing raids, they're doing secret shoppers. Somebody goes in, buys a pack of gum. They see that the THC is there in the shelves and in the cooler cans, right? Just the cans of drinks is what they're really going after. And then they send the ABC, the alcohol beverage control, into there to bust the shop owner, the liquor store, for selling THC. And this is, I just read a couple of days ago that this executive order only goes until March. And then the legislators have to put something permanent in if they want to do this. But, what happened is that we lost hemp CBD in California. Right, 40 million people, 56% still has of our state still has a ban on THC shops, dispensaries. So it really makes a very, very messy legislation to come, because it just, people are going to want to be intoxicated. They want to change consciousness. So you have to have a legal access point for that. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because people are doing the wrong thing. Because there's always going to be those people too.
And we want people to be safe. Like that, again, my biggest concern is the under 21 population, which I'm not encouraging, 13-year-olds to go out and get high, but the people that are using it as medicine, particularly that wouldn't have access to an adult use market legally. And then, and then being able to find CBD products, because it's really important. It's really a sad state of affairs, but we need it to be safe. That's the thing. So I think, I am a by the book, like I pretty much buy things that are legislated, regulated, and legal. And I think that especially people that live in states that don't have a reliable cannabis program, that have a contact, that their person they trust, the trusted contact, a trusted grower, they could be getting some really beautiful medicine. And I am supportive of that until our government does something better.
Well, we expect to see you in DC advocating for what makes sense.
Yes, I live close enough. I definitely.
To come. So you mentioned, let's go back to Bloom for a minute. You mentioned Bloom being your favorite CBD brand and digestive tincture as one of your favorate products. So talk about why and what you take it for.
And I got a cute little graphic to pull up. I got to pull that up.
Yes. So I definitely have been through the gamut of some different CBD products. When you work in this space, as you guys probably know, before Bloom, people are always trying to get you to try their stuff, take their stuff, buy my samples, take my samples. And I am really particular about what I put in my body, especially since all the COVID stuff. I've had some gut issues and symptoms of long COVID with rashes and like all these new allergies that have really been frustrating for me personally. Now, I'll say that one of the things that has helped me is this like metabolic reset diet and some supplements that if anybody relates to anything I just said about like since COVID or long COVID, reach out to me because I would love to share with you outside of this what really helped me, because it really was beneficial and it still is something that I utilize for support. But one of the things I was left with was somehow a sensitivity to coconut, and so many cannabis products and CBD products are based off of MCT oil, which is a medium chain triglyceride that's based off of generally coconut oil. And so there's a lot of products that I can't take, even very hidden MCT oil. Even the tiniest bit seems to cause me to break out into rashes, like itchy rashes. So thankfully, Bloom has options for wonderful products that are MCT, which for most people, MCT is a beautiful thing. Not only does it reduce inflammation and cause maybe even a little bit of appetite suppression, and it's really healthy for a lot of people. But also for me, it's not. So the digestive tincture, thankfully, is not an MCT oil and has, I think, like fennel in it.
Hemp
Seed oil. So the essentials line. So the original Bloom hemp products were Ayurvedic inspired, created by Dr. Sunil Pai out of Sanjevani Wellness in New Mexico. And so the three essentials lines is the Bloom hemp digestive tincture, Bloom hemp recovery tincture, Bloom hemp calming tincture. And all of those tinctures are extracted and put into hemp seed oil.
And the digestive, which you love, is special for several reasons. It's got CBD, 1,200 milligrams, CBG, 100 milligrams, and then coriander, cumin, and fennel. So you were right on the fennel, but even more, right? And that is an Ayurvedic blend that goes back thousands of years for soothing the stomach and digestive issues, nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, etc. GERD. Every time I get a little bit of GERD, I can just take a half a dropper of this, and there it goes, which is wonderful because I don't like to use Tums. My mother had dementia, vascular dementia, and I don't want to get it. Now I can't. I don't know why, but they say that Tums might cause it. So I'm going to just stay as healthy as I can with, cannabinoids as opposed to all the other things we could put into our body.
Natural herbs and things. Yeah. And that's, so one of the things that I really like about Bloom is that you're willing to combine some of those other things that we know in herbal medicine are beneficial and in plants are beneficial, rather than try to put a synthetic, some other thing to add to it. Like, I'm not really even a fan of like the flavored, if you have like, I guess peppermint extract, it's different, but some of them are just too, flavored. I want it as simple as possible, but meeting my needs. And this really, I guess I've been taking it for probably a year now, I think.
Well, no, we met you in CanMed, so that was May. That was the beginning of May, and you got started after that. And so it's been a good 6 months for sure.
Yeah.
But, the botanicals are really wonderful because they allow that synergistic approach of symptom targeted relief, right? It's like, like Focus, which is the one on the front here, CBD 1,200, CBG 200, and THCV 200, along with yerba mate for energy and focus and clarity, lion's mane for cognition, and reishi to boost the immune system and give you some beautiful wholeness, right? And that one is, symptom targeted for focus, energy, metabolism. People are losing weight, having appetite suppression, and not having to have as much coffee, right? And then the back one, Trilogy, is my other favorite, CBD, CBG, and CBN, and 1,000 milligrams each, along with 500 milligrams beta caryophyllene, astragalus oil, oregano oil, and cinnamon. So all CB2 agonists to really boost the immune system.
And so for those that are new that are watching, CB2 agonists, CB2 receptors primarily sit on immune cells, and so can nudge immune cells to correct cell signaling for homeostasis, right?
Yeah, and this is why nurses are some of the best people to be in this industry, because we understand so much. It's sorry, things just roll off my tongue because I'm a geek.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
I know you are too. That's why I love you. But it's trying to explain this to patients and to consumers, and why it matters, and everybody wants to get the best bang for their buck as well, right? None of this stuff is cheap. It's expensive to grow cannabis. It's expensive to test it. It's expensive to do all the compliance work. And so that the more that you can get resolution with your symptoms quickly, the better, right? And that's why we do what we do.
And one other thing I just want to add too that I think is something that I really love about Bloom. So, I mean, you do have gummies and some of the other options, like we're talking specifically about what Nurse Laura can take, but there are lots of options. The concentrates though, the isolated, not concentrates, the isolates are really beneficial because of the challenge of finding the right accessible things, particularly even in like a tincture or a homemade oil or for a topical, it really is challenging even in a beautiful regulated market like we have in Maryland to get CBD, CBG, some EN, like some of those things. And so that people can come here and they can buy those and add them to what they're purchasing. Or if they're making it, I'm a fan of a small Black woman owned business, Ardent, that makes like an oil, a herb diffuser, and to be able to add something like this to it, because it's just hard for individuals to get a hold of those types of cannabinoids. I think it's really helpful. And again, to know that they're lab tested and reliable and safe. Not only are you women owned, you're nurse owned. It's really, it makes my heart feel good. So yeah, huge fan.
We're very happy to have you be part of our team, which leads us to what drew you to come join us at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse, Nurse Laura.
Well, because I love you guys. Honestly, it's the education. So much more than the Bloom products. It's the level of detail in the education that you put out, Sherry, that you used to put out, from a long time with your Green Nurse podcast. And then as Elizabeth and I learned about the actual like detailed modules, there's so much education out there. And again, I'm blessed to have had the opportunity to review a lot of education on cannabis. And, we really, yes, the University of Maryland has a beautiful Masters of Cannabis Science and Therapeutics program. If anyone wants to join, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to give you information about the program. And there really isn't a one-stop shop for specifically cannabis nursing or healthcare provider detailed education, so that you guys have like the free, quick education and then a more detailed with CEU education is really important to me. And that really was one of the big selling points, besides knowing that you're both beautiful people. But it's really important to me to partner with people who are putting out something that I feel like represents who I am and is at the same level of quality. And I think quality.
Yay, thank you. And with cannabis nursing being recognized as a specialty, this is kind of glowing in the dark.
Wow, it's really glowing. That's so cool.
Scope and standards. So if I put it on my chest, maybe, yes, you can hold up yours.
Okay,
there we go. So so the Cannabis Nursing Scope and Standards has been published by the American Nurses Association and the American Cannabis Nurses Association. Very, very exciting. And the part that's awesome about that is Elizabeth's book, Cannabis for Health, Become a Coach, is written about in this
what page?
I think
I thought you knew what page.
I had a slide, but I don't remember. But also Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse programs are also written about in that book, that we are able to teach to that level. So we're able to teach to the scope and standards of cannabis nursing. And so what we've been doing this past year since the book came out and we've gotten it is we've started to rewrite our curriculum to make sure that it fully aligns with the scope and standards of cannabis nursing, because we want nurses to be successive.
Absolutely. Nurses are the game changers. And so I foresee a future. Well, both. But I foresee a future where nurses will have jobs at dispensaries, educating the public and consumers and doing Saturday morning groups, working in health plans as case managers and care management, working in inside insurance companies and health plans. Well, I said that, but assisted living facilities, understanding how to use these compounds, because, truth be told, the people that are buying cannabis for the most part today, they were smoking pot back in high school, and now it's legal, and they're like, well, I don't really want to take those drugs. So they're early adopters. But the ones that we really need to, reach and teach are the ones that have never had cannabis before and who really benefit from it. People with cancer, people with autoimmune conditions, people with, even psychiatry. They poo-poo it on that. But, good CBD is something that can be a wonderful antipsychotic, and for mood disorders and even depression, and helping people sleep and calm down, because, you mentioned COVID. We've been all a little uptight since then. So,
Although this new research, this new little thing about, psychedelics and the healthcare worker PTSD and psychedelics helping, I'm really excited about that research too. But yes. Yes.
I completely agree, because the thing is as healthcare professionals, when you are in the environment saving lives, you do not know what you're going to see every day, what you're going to see, what you're going to experience, what you're going to witness, and what you're going to take on from not only other providers, but patients and families that are suffering. That affects our psyche as nurses.
Yeah. So we need
and I really truly believe that psychedelics are going to be the game changers for health professionals to truly overcome their own trauma from having to work in the system that is so broken. Right?
Yes. Yes. Amen. 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 Yes. Yes. We need to heal ourselves.
Heal self, heal others. So Laura, this has been just an amazing show. Extremely grateful to have you on. If you look in the show notes, there is all different links all about Nurse Laura and how you can find her and how you can reach her. Do you have any words of wisdom for our viewers before we close off?
And I lost track of time. It was
be curious. Be curious about cannabis. Be curious about plant medicine. Be willing. You don't have to choose to do it, but just try to be curious about it. And talk to your doctor about it. Talk to anyone about it.
Be open.
Be open. Yes. And for people that are new and that are watching this for the first time, we do have a private network off of social media. If you go to holisticcaring.com, on the very front page, it says join the network. Well, it's free. You can come into the network and you can see what we're doing in there. We have a free introductory to cannabis course, free ABCs of CBD. All of the podcasts, webcasts, and webinars are in there. We have a free plant medicine support group, and it's also where we house all of our other paid for programs.
Yeah, and there's a feed. We post things in there every day or two with some tips and tricks and information and legislation. So please join us, and we'll see you there.
Yes, and remember, everyone, what it's truly all about. It's truly all about living your best life and helping others do the same. And we're going to end with my other favorite video. I hope you like this one too, Nurse Laura. Don't hang up, and we will be back.
All right. God bless.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.